I'm Amanda Veneman. I'm a registered dietitian with Flik Hospitality, and today I'm making a red cabbage and dried cherry slaw. So I've started with a small head of cabbage, and I've cut out the core, and I'm just slicing it thinly and putting it in my glass bowl here. I'm starting this step about an hour or two before I want to put the rest of the recipe together, because as you may know, red cabbage can be kind of tough, and if you let it sit in the bowl with the salt and pepper on it, the salt will help break it down a little bit and make it a little bit more tender and easier to eat. So we're going to start with this step a little early. I love using red cabbage because it's got such a bright color to it, and that lets you know that it has tons of nutrients in it. It's really rich in something called anthocyanin, and that's an antioxidant, and it can reduce your risk for heart disease and cancer. So that's why we always want to include a lot of color in our diet, because we're getting a lot of those little plant compounds that are really powerful benefit to our bodies. It's also really high in vitamin C and vitamin B6 and K and vitamin A, so we know that we're getting a lot of nutrition within a red cabbage. It's also in season right now. Cabbages tend to grow in the cooler weather, so now that it started cooling down, the cabbages and the other brassica vegetables like broccoli and Brussels sprouts and kale are in season again, and you can find them at your local farmer's market, and they may be cheaper at the grocery store when it's in season as well. So next I'm going to slice up the red onion, and I'm going to add it to the mix, or to the red cabbage with the salt, to kind of pull out some of that liquid. So I'm doing a julienne on the red cabbage, and I just cut it in half, and then I'm slicing it into these thin little pieces. Some people think that raw onions can be potent and maybe don't love the flavor of them. Something that you can do to take out some of that harshness is to soak it in ice water for a little bit before you use it in the recipe, and that kind of takes some of that out. You can also pickle red onions, and that really draws out some of that harsh flavor, and it makes them taste kind of sweet actually. We also love to roast red onions with lots of different vegetables in our house, because they actually are really delicious. They transform whenever you roast them. So I've got all of that added to my bowl, and I'm going to add about a tablespoon or a teaspoon of salt to this, and like I said, I'm going to let that sit for about an hour or two and let some of that water come out. So that's what the salt is going to do, is going to draw some of the water out of the cabbage, and that will make it a little softer. I'm going to start on my dressing, and the way I like to make dressing is to just put it in a small mason jar. The recipe calls for sherry vinegar. I actually don't have that on hand, and I couldn't find it at Aldi where I tend to grocery shop, so I'm using rice vinegar. It's sweet just like sherry vinegar is. It's not as harsh as like a red wine vinegar in acidity, so it's probably the next best choice. You could also use champagne vinegar if that's something that you keep on hand. So the recipe says about a half of a cup of the vinegar, and that's going to help break down that red cabbage as well. And then about 2 tablespoons of oil. I think I might add a little bit more. And the recipe actually calls for some sugar in the dressing, which will kind of give a different flavor and help round out what's going on in the salad. And it calls for some salt and pepper, and also some lime juice. So I always have limes on hand for all kinds of things, but you just want to press down really hard on the counter to break up some of that juice. I've even heard people put them in the microwave to get that juice released from the inside. I don't know which one works best, so I'm gonna put some of this in the dressing as well. This is my favorite. One of my favorite kitchen tools is the citrus juicer, and I also love a microplane, which probably this would be really good if we microplaned the outside, the zest of the lime, just to add that brightness to the dressing. And lid on, shake it up. So So it's got a nice light color. You can tell that it's all emulsified, and we're gonna pour that over the cabbage here in a minute. And we're gonna add a jalapeno to this recipe. Jalapenos are obviously really spicy, and you can use gloves to cut them so that you don't accidentally end up touching your face and making your face burn. I don't have any gloves right now, so I'm just going for it, but you can take out the white ribbing and the seeds. That's where a lot of that spice is found in the jalapenos. So I have done that to try and take away some of that heat. But I really want the flavor of the jalapeno in this recipe because it will help balance out all of the sweet that we have going on. So in this bowl, I have added the jalapenos, the red onions, the cabbage, and the salt, and it's all kind of set, and that salt has worked on the cabbage to get a lot of the water out to make it a little softer. I'm going to add our dried cherries and the dressing on top. So you might want to shake it up again. You don't have to use all the dressing to start with. You can kind of pour it over the top and mix it around and just see if that's enough. So I probably could have used a bigger bowl that would make it easier to mix up. I'd use tongs probably to kind of turn this and get everything mixed in. But instead I'm going to grab a lid and kind of take this same idea as I did with my mason jar and let the dressing coat everything like that. So this salad will stay good in the refrigerator for probably 3 to 5 days or so because that cabbage is so hearty. The texture is going to hold up really well. It's probably going to taste even better as the week goes on. So I will eat this as a side with my lunches or with dinner. Another thing that I like about this salad is that it has a good amount of fiber in it, and the cabbage has a good amount of the insoluble and soluble fibers. So I know that I'm getting both benefits there. So hopefully sometime this fall or winter you will be able to get some of these seasonal brassica vegetables into your house, and know that whenever you choose to eat them in the cooler months that they are going to taste a little sweeter. They won't be quite as harsh. Whenever they are exposed to that cold weather, the roots send sugar up the stalk, and that kind of helps protect the plant whenever the cold weather hits. So make sure to try this soon. So thank you so much for watching this video today. I hope that you will check out some of our other videos on our Flik YouTube page, and happy cooking. Take care.